what is digital trace data? Um, I'm going to begin again, like Michael did. I don't think you mentioned Duncan, did you, Matt? But so far, Duncan's made, I think, three appearances. And this is just this wonderful quote that Duncan wrote a few years back. Just as the invention of the telescope revolutionized the study of heavens, so too by rendering the unmeasurable measurable, the technological revolution in mobile, web, and internet communications has the potential to revolutionize our understanding of ourselves and how we interact. 300 years after Alexander Pope argued that the proper study of mankind should lie not in the heavens, but in ourselves, we have finally found our telescope. Let the revolution begin. Preach on, right? I mean, we've all heard this kind of language, and I think we saw that at the height of the hype expectation cycle that Matt showed us the other day. Expectations were sky high. In part because quotes like this. I still have a strong hope that we'll get to the revolution, but I think there's a lot of naysayers here, and so we're going to focus a lot on how we go forward, how we get to what Matt called yesterday the plateau of productivity. So why is Duncan and so many of the rest of us excited? Well, digital trace data is a new kind of data. Maybe the most obvious kind is from social media sites. Many of you have done work already with everything from Yelp to Facebook to Twitter. Another really interesting line of inquiry has emerged around web search data. Things like Google Trends, Google AdWords, SEO data. And I think we're starting to see a lot of that work come on right now. Some of you are doing this type of work. I've got a new project looking at tracking violent radicalization using web search data, really interesting opportunities to look at data that represents human behavior. That's kind of the trace element of this definition. Third, blogs or other internet forums. These are obviously getting a bit dated, but there's still quite a lot of interesting data out there. You can analyze all of Reddit if you ever have the desire. But I think the other interesting thing, and something that usually gets swept aside in these large discussions about what is new, is that we're equally moving into the future and the past. So administrative data, archived historical data, I think is some of the most interesting trace data and something that's been really underutilized in the field, in part because social media data is relatively easy to get. Administrative data, as we'll see both today and tomorrow when we start to talk about text analysis, is messy, it's dirty, it's unwieldy, it's difficult to go from words to numbers, and that's just a key challenge. And finally, I think the Internet Archive and audiovisual data are really criminally underutilized. Many of you will probably be familiar with the Internet Archive. It's a site that periodically archives websites. It has an API, which is an interface you can use to collect data automatically, and that's a really nice source, particularly now that we have 20 plus years of the internet, and really interesting questions around the internet itself. Finally, audio-visual data. I think this is just brand new for many people. We're all excited about new techniques in face recognition, applying machine learning to images, and so on and so forth. But I think this is mostly underused. There's a few interesting exceptions, but it's a new place that we can go with digital trace data. So some exemplars. Here's Michael Macy's map of the BTM telephone network in Britain, where he and David Eagle at Cornell again convinced the largest telecom provider to share the logs of every telephone call. And the data's neat. It can effectively map Great Britain on its own. Another example is the ubiquitous Facebook map created by a Facebook data scientist whose name escapes me. Does anybody, just so I can give credit to? Anyways, this is just the friendship structure of network of Facebook, and these are just simply data points represented by the GPS location of each user, and the arcs between them are friendship ties on Facebook. So this kind of stuff is getting people really, really excited. Matt, on the other hand, has likened it to a toilet. So
Beautiful,
a beautiful
very
toilet,
clever.
right, a beautiful toilet.
Incredibly clever.
Incredibly clever toilet, right? So I want to just come back to this. I think Matt's distinction is really useful between ready-made and custom-made data. And the key point here in my reading of the book is that ready-made data is stuff that's already out there that we're repurposing for social science, and custom-made data is something that we kind of build from the ground up. And social scientists, by and large, are used to building these custom-mades, but we are increasingly using these ready-mades. I prefer the Picasso toilet, and I might change the Michelangelo to one of my daughter's grand drawings. But you know, the point should hopefully be clear. There's good potential in this, but there's real danger. Why? Because the data weren't made for the purpose that we have for our own analyses. They're built for users.